Winds of up to 90 miles an hour bring the less hardy to a standstill or use them like a Scotsman's curling stones.
Alley fight between Fitz and Combs. You both get to pick 3 all-time Sox and Cubs as part of your alley fight. My number 1 draft pick is Michael Barrett.
Michael Barrett, you're out of your mind.
Michael Barrett, do you see that right hook? Ask AJ Brzezinski if he wants to get hit with that right hook again.
You can ask AJ Brzezinski that.
I will.
That's such a podcast question.
Shut up. Go to Rizzo. It's in time. And the Chicago Cubs win the World Series. Uribe has it. He throws. Out! A White Sox winner and a World Championship.
And welcome to Windy City Sports Talk. I am Brandon Combs, alongside my co-host Ryan Fitzgibbons. We have a lot to get to tonight, including the Cubs are supposedly all in on winning this division. The White Sox are who we thought they were. And we're going to talk some Bears, some Blackhawks, you're going to get Connor Bedard tomorrow night. But if you do miss any part of today's live broadcast, you can now catch us all on all podcast platforms, including Amazon Music, Spotify, and Pandora. We're also available on iHeartRadio. As always, make sure to click that like button, share, and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform. If you have any feedback for us or have something you want us to talk about or any questions you want us to answer, you can also email us at combsandfitz, all one word, combsandfitz@gmail.com. Fitzy, man. I normally I say hi to you. Normally I say, hey, what's going on, man? I'm so damn frustrated with your White Sox.
Up your butt.
I'm not even a White Sox fan, man, but they're so frustrating to watch. It's been brutal, man. Every time with this team, every time you look at it and you say, all right, look, I know it's been a bad season. I know it's been rough, but you're about to go in a 13-game stretch heading into the All-Star break where you're playing 3 out of those 4 teams are struggling just as much as you are. If you go 10-3 in that stretch, you can come into the All-Star break on high hopes, only being 5 games under 500, only being, 4.5, 5 games out of this division. And then they lose in the fashion that they lose last night, one day after you say that. I don't know what to do with this team. I just don't.
Well, I don't know who needs to hear this, but don't eat a spicy dinner and then afterwards watch White Sox baseball. And then after that, watch an episode of Black Mirror, the Twilight Zone type show on Netflix, and then go to sleep. I don't know who needs to hear that. That is a domino effect you do not want happening in your dreams.
That sounds personal.
Yes, it was. Yes. And you know what? It was even worse driving home from work today and to work on Lakeshore Drive, which was pretty interesting. People are trying to kill themselves just to make it to work 5 seconds earlier. But
well, it's because of all the smoke.
Yeah.
We're getting smoked out by Canada.
Yes, there's smoke. We can't drive now all of a sudden.
It looks like you're driving through Cheech and Chong's van.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was, and it smelled, but it wasn't like you couldn't drive. I mean, but anyway, that's White Sox baseball at this point. We talked a little bit about Grandal. Yeah, maybe he has to catch that ball. He has been better defensively behind the plate. His bat's there this year. He's not the problem. I mean, he hasn't been the problem. You can't have 1 run away and think you're going to win a game. You can't score 1 run away and think you're going to win a game against a guy who has a sweeper.
Yeah.
And a fastball, kind of. Who's not a very great pitcher. Has an ERA in the 4s, which I guess is okay. I mean, Dylan Cease gives you another gem. Now his ERA is under 4. It was above 6 in April. It's not easy to do. and which isn't even 2 months. Well, we'll call it 2 months because he's not going to have another start until July. But is going to be an okay pitcher by the All-Star break, maybe a little bit above average, and you just ruin another good pitching performance. There's just so many problems with this organization and this team that to if you pull one thread, like an entire ball of yarn comes with it and 5 screaming cats.
Yeah.
And
you lose in the fashion you lose last night. First of all, the pitch selection, we were talking about this before the show. This pitch selection to me to Shohei Ohtani was incredibly disappointing because you're pitching to one of the greatest hitters in the game right now, and you're with him at 2-2, and you throw 2 non-competitive sweepers of your own that don't even start in the zone, finish out of he's not going to chase that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you're throwing these pitches to put the winning run on second base because Trout ahead of him had walked as well.
Yeah.
And not only did you bring in Aaron Bummer after you, for whatever reason, you let, what is his obsession with Ronaldo Lopez? Why does he love Ronaldo Lopez so much?
I mean, there's been a lot of pitchers that are actually have good stuff that suck. That just, he's got good stuff. You can't really deny that. Pretty much throws 100, has a great slider. Yeah, his fastball can be flat, but you can have 100-mile-an-hour flat fastball if you locate it.
Right. It's the same thing with Bummer.
He has good stuff if you can harness that. And last year, Ronaldo Lopez and the year before was pretty damn good.
Yeah, Bummer's got potential too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you're throwing these pitches. And not only that, Grandal has to block that pitch. That pitch that gets through to end the game. The first one, I'll give him. You know what I mean? Hits the dirt before it hits. This one hits directly off the tip of his glove and just goes behind him. And then, the attempt to, he would have never gotten Trout anyway, but he just kind of backhands it, throws the ball away into first base side. But it's like there's no life to this. Like they don't want to play baseball.
In a lot of sports, I just can't say a lot of that in baseball. It's hard to gauge whether they have energy. They're not a very smart team. There's smart players on the team, but they're not a very smart team. They probably have one of the most talented center field. They have the most talented center fielder in the league, and maybe the best center fielder in the league. I'll talk more about that later. But,
Doubting Thomas chimes in and says, cheering for the White Sox baseball is like cheering for deep sea submersibles. I think it's like being on the fan base is like being on a deep sea submersible.
It is an implosion. Sell the team, Jerry.
Sell the team. See, so that's another thing. So no matter what you do, I don't think and I've said this before. I said it last week. I said they're in a black hole because you need a new front office. You need to figure. Kenny's been hanging on to the fact that he won a World Series, 15 years ago or 18 years ago now, and you've got Rick Hahn and Kenny who just, they get railroaded by the owner when they want to go out and get a respectable manager, and he goes out and says, no, go get my guy Tony La Russa. So it's hard to kind of put all of this on them, but I don't want these guys running a rebuild either. And so if that's the case, does Rick Hahn quit first or does Jerry fire him first? I guess that's the question, right?
Hasn't that been the question? Wasn't that the question with Paxson?
Well, that was the story behind Paxson. You heard the story behind Paxson, right?
Yeah.
Paxson wanted out. He said, Jerry, this isn't working. And Jerry's like, well, the only way I let you go is if you stay with me.
Or if you quit. Yeah. You go. Yeah. Robin Ventura was the same way. Like they didn't, like I said, instead of getting a manager after Ozzie left, they decided not to. That's why they got Robin Ventura. and they think they're too goddamn smart. They think they're too smart to need a manager. That's what they actually think, that they think that they're too good at drafting people and bringing people in to do that. And they're good in spots. Yeah. I mean, they do have some talented players, but they're not good across the board, and they're not good across the board in their organization. They really aren't. They're not even good. They're not even and they barely innovated or somewhat innovated in pitching throughout the years. That was always one place I always say on here that I could have trusted them, but they're not even doing that anymore. I mean, they really aren't. I mean, it's really pathetic, and they think that they can just get any manager in there like a Pedro Grifol, when it was obvious to everyone in the offseason. And I'm still not going to get off that Pedro Grifol. I'm not going to just say he's a bad manager, because who the fuck knows? I mean, 80 games, come on. But it was obvious to everyone that Ozzie was the guy for this team. If you're not going to go with a guy, well, Ozzie did have experience, but if you're not going to go with a guy outside of the organization that had a lot of experience, Ozzie was the guy. And instead, they went with a guy who had no experience, who you said about 20 times last week the Kansas City Royals didn't even want. I mean, and they think they're smart enough. They think they're smarter than these other teams, and they're not. These other teams are innovating. Look at the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. 500 less innings.
Yes.
Where their pitchers saw the lineup over 2 times. And that's where the averages change. That's where all these dumb shits who go, Nolan Ryan used to pitch 9 innings every game. Yeah, and he lost fucking, hundreds of games.
Nolan Ryan was an anomaly.
Yeah. Well,
Nolan Ryan could throw 160 pitches.
True. He could, but was he as good at later in those innings? I bet you if you pull back the numbers, that's why they're doing it. You have the other team's going to have an unfair advantage if Nolan Ryan's in there for 9 innings these days.
He either threw a 3 or less hitter, or he got demolished. Mm-hmm. If he gave up more than 3 hits, he was giving up 7 or 8 runs. Yeah, that Nolan Ryan. That's why Nolan Ryan, to me, I talk about all the time. I get in arguments all the time when we talk baseball. But Nolan Ryan's not even a top 20 all-time pitcher, and he's not. Yeah, give me a 7 no hitter. He had 7 good games. Okay, cool.
He might be the most talented pitcher ever to lace him up.
No, he just threw the ball really hard. Guys had a hard time catching up to what he was throwing, and that wasn't. He was the only guy throwing as hard as he was in that era.
He had some good breaking stuff too, though. I mean, watch the Nolan Ryan documentary.
Doubting Thomas says Combs talking shit about Nolan Ryan. I am. I'm a Nolan Ryan fan too, and that's the thing. Like I do like Nolan Ryan. I loved watching him pitch grow up. I loved what he brought to the game, and he was fun to watch when he was on. But he's not a top 20 all-time pitcher. He's just not. And I'll bring stats to back it up.
Yeah, the stats are out there. They are, and he was on a lot of bad teams though too. I mean, we do have to take that a little bit into account. But I'm just saying I would just to get back to my point. We're not going to do that anymore in sports. Sports is like a car's engine. Like you used to be able to just take an alternator out. You can't. There's no wasted space anymore in sports. We're really drilling down to the nitty gritty here, to where every stat, everything is under scrutiny, to where they know that these guys, that many pitchers. And I'm not talking about the top 10, top 15%. You get the same swings and misses on a Dylan Cease slider as you got in the first inning. That doesn't happen with the bottom 70% of the league. They just can't pitch into that 13. So what did Tampa Bay do?
Yeah,
they innovated. They're putting in. They bring out. They don't just have the 12, 13 relievers that you can have on a team. When you start the season, they have 20 relievers. They bring relievers and cycle them out of their Jesus Christ, out of their farm system. They cycle them out as they go. They try to get as many relievers as they can so they can have fully pitched reliever games, or have starters only pitch 4 or 5 innings and then bring them in. And what have they done? They're dominating this league right now.
Yeah, I am. I don't know. It's hard to, like I said, it's frustrating I can't imagine if this was the team that I root for every day. I mean, it's been frustrating for Cubs fans too to watch what's happened since 2016, but to this effect where you've gotten to the point where you have no farm system because everybody that was good in your farm system is now on your major league club. You've had no success with your major league club because you failed to put a manager in there that can run this team. And people, Rick Hahn came out last year, even after letting Tony go, and I don't blame them for Tony. That's completely on Jerry. Completely 100% on Jerry. But you came out and said, look, we want a manager. And these were their 3 criteria that he came out and said. We want a manager with experience. We want a manager that has shown and has been on winning ball clubs. And we want a manager who can lead this young team. You take that 3 criteria and you roll it up into Ozzie Guillen. Yeah. Ozzie Guillen had success in your own damn organization, won a World Series in your own damn organization. Was the last time that you even won a playoff series was when Ozzie Guillen was the manager. They haven't won a playoff series since that World Series in 2005. And you go and you pass him up, and you go and you bring in Pedro Grifol, who you can tell me all you want that you don't want to make decision after 80 games. My mind is made up after 80 games, because just like I've said with Rossi over on the north side, I've said it plenty of times. Sure, you have guys who are underachieving right now. You got guys who don't hustle. You've got guys who look like they don't want to be out on the field. You've got all of this stuff. But you still make the decision on who to bring into the game. You still go out there and put up the left hand or the right hand, and you still put Ronaldo Lopez in situations where the game counts. And it's the same thing I said about Ross with Michael Fulmer. Stop putting guys in situations that they clearly cannot be successful. And that's what he continues to do. So that's why, for me, the jury is already out on Pedro Grifol. I think the jury was out before they hired him, because there's a reason, again, for the 21st time, that the Kansas City Royals did not hire him twice. Like, you do not go out and make that decision. And that is why this front office cannot do a rebuild. The problem is there's not going to be a new front office because Jerry won't fire anybody. Sox fans are going to be stuck in this damn cycle over and over and over again until Jerry Reinsdorf dies.
Hey, fucking minute is.
I mean, I can't even. Yeah, I mean, I don't see. It has some parallels to other teams for sure, and other organizations. I mean, you could look, starting to look a little bit like the Redskins, even though that's a totally different sport. It can remind you of a lot of different teams at this
Oakland
point. Oakland A's, little bit like we talked about last week.
Good fan base. Owner just doesn't want to win.
No, I mean, it's something, man. And like I said, after he wins that 2005, that sort of settles things down from the whole Jordan end of era, even though I do think that Bulls team was about done. It kind of cooled things, and you were like, the guy won 6 basketball championships. He just won probably one of the hardest championships to win in sports is baseball. I mean, you could make arguments about the other leagues, but baseball's pretty damn hard. I mean, it takes years to put a good team together and then keep it together. I mean, so 2005, you think, things are good. You think that, hey, you got a pretty good organization. They do good in 2006. If there's not a wild card, probably if there's a wild card, I mean, at that time, they're probably they're definitely in the wild card. They win 90 games in 2006. They have a down year in 07. A lot of guys got hurt. And then in 08, they're back in the playoffs again.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah, you got something going here. And Yeah, and then you have the next like 12 years, and then this crap. You have a talented team where they do this with, which if you were able to chew at the edges of this and innovate a little bit and maybe get a real second baseman. And, I thought Elvis Andrews was going to be the guy, but why not have a backup to that and have a right fielder that's not a guy who, has been playing in the United States for 9 months.
Yep.
Well, Oscar Colas, I don't know if he got a good shake here.
And then you lose that game yesterday, the way that you lose it. And now tonight you've got to go and face Shohei Ohtani. So like with Shohei Ohtani and in this game tonight, you've already put yourself where you wanted to win 3 out of 4 in this series. Or maybe even split. But now you're going to be down 0-2 because you're banking on whether or not Shohei Ohtani has a good or a bad game. And you don't want to have to start banking on guys to not have good games. You don't want to have to start banking on, hey, well, maybe Shohei Ohtani will be off tonight. The guy who is the best pitcher in baseball right now, a guy who is the best hitter in baseball right now, a guy who just, he's that guy. And now you got to bank on that if you want to even have a hope at winning 3 out of 4 in this series. And you don't have a chance. You don't have a shot. This team is done. They're dead in the water. They've got no shot. As much as I would have liked to have said, hey, if you go 10-3 in the stretch, you could have a whole. I expect them to lose 2 out of 3 when they go to Oakland.
Yeah, and there's no fun either. I mean, there's been no time. I guess you could say the 5-game winning streak, but there's been really no time where they've been fun. Luckily,
they don't want to win.
They won on a grand slam on the one game, and then they make the guy who beat the team with a grand slam, who has 18 home runs now in like 50 games. They put him 8th because that's smart.
Yeah. We played a softball game last Wednesday. Shout out to my softball team, Unwanted, over in Oklahoma. We're 6-1 right now. But we're playing a game last week, and we go into extra innings, and we're just going back and forth with this team. And at one point, me and the first baseman looked at each other like, nobody wants to win this game. No, we're just going to keep playing ball all night long. Nobody wants to win this game. And that's what it feels like with the White Sox. You're watching a team that just doesn't want to win. They don't care. They don't want to be there. They are there to collect their paycheck and go home. And that's a bad look. It's a bad look.
That's a bad look for like a human being. You're playing a kid's sport for millions of dollars, and you can make millions more dollars if you play well.
Right.
But I guess that's how it works. I mean, that's just human nature. Like you just, start not caring. You're around a lot of people who don't care. And, this is what you get. You're right. As a fan, it's a tough watch, but I think it's a tough watch as a baseball fan. I think there's some sensibility in baseball more than in any other sport. I think that's why we love it so much, is that people know when baseball looks bad. I mean, I guess you can in other sports. You can see a bad basketball team, but people aren't like totally offended by it. Baseball's offensive when it's not played well and not played smart, really. That's what it is. It's a thinking man sport, like we've talked about a lot of times. And that's just how, unfortunately, how the Sox have played this year. And it's hard to root for a team like that. That's the hardest thing about it. Is in 2021, even with TLR, and in 2020, even with Ricky Renteria, who in the end looks like a genius now. It was at least a fun team to watch and a team to root for. There was a lot of players on the team that you wanted to do well. Now it's just like, God, you guys fucking deserve this.
That poor guy must hate Chicago. He got screwed twice by Chicago baseball teams.
Up your butt, Joe Boo.
The Cubs screwed on. With all due respect, the Cubs screwed him to go out and get one of the greatest managers of all time, and they won a World Series because of it. They went out and got Joe Madden and let Ricky Renteria go, but the Sox did. The Sox did it, and that one had to have stung. If I were him, I'm never stepping. Like I hope Chicago teams lose the rest of their games for the rest of my life if I'm that guy.
big time, and it was over like a 2020 season where what a dynamic team they had that season, and they really didn't even have a lot of pitching. He really didn't have much pitching to go to in that playoffs. I mean, they should have beat that Oakland team. That's for sure. But I don't know. I don't know if things were going that bad unless you don't get rid of Ricky Renteria to get a guy who's been retired for what?
No, you get rid of him to go get AJ Hinch.
Yeah, or somebody of that ilk, or like the Texas Rangers have and Bruce Bochy.
Yes.
I mean, was that hard to get over the offseason? Bring Bruce Bochy in. Look at how he's lined up that team. Obviously, the Texans have shored up their entire team instead of 80% of it.
He's not a yes man.
No, he isn't either.
Yeah. And that's a problem on the south side, and they're going to continue to have that problem. But let's get over to the north side of town. Let's talk about the Cubs. They just went across the pond. Speaking of across the pond, whoever on our downloads, because I can see all the analytics of where all the downloads are, whoever is in Brussels, Belgium, downloading the show, first of all, we want to thank you, and we appreciate you listening to the show, and we hope you're getting all that you need out of your Chicago sports talk with us. But if you wouldn't mind as to dropping us a line, whether it's through email, whether it's through Facebook, whatever it is, let us know who you are. Let us know what you like about the show. Let us know what intrigued you, what brings you on, and how you're enjoying the show. We would love to hear from you, by the way. That's crazy that somebody in Belgium, Brussels, Belgium, found the podcast in the first 2 weeks we've been in podcast form.
Maybe it's... Maybe it's someone like bouncing a VPN line like off of various different things.
It could be
to track them down.
It could be, but if you are legitimately in Belgium, you could be, you could be in the military. You could be from Chicago, but in the military, or there could be all sorts of things. Or it could be somebody just bouncing a VPN, just trying not to get tracked. Whatever you got to do. But yeah, just drop us a line. Let us know what you like about the show, what you're enjoying about it. We'd love to hear from you. But no, the north side of town, the Cubs went over to London, and they totally demolished the Cardinals in the first game, and then they were on track, leading 4-0 after the first inning of the second game, and then Trey Mancini happened. And to his credit, it's Fitz's son from 1998. To his credit, Trey Mancini did own it after the game. He did own it. He did say, "Hey, you cost me. I cost this team a game. I've got to be better." He was immediate. It was one of the things where I was like, "Oh wow, David Ross made a good managerial decision," because it was an inning later where he sat Trey Mancini and he brought in Cody Bellinger, because that play, you on that play, 1 run scores, and on the very next pitch, you should have been out of the inning. The very next pitch, a base hit, and they score 2 more runs to give them 3 runs on the inning, and you lose by 2. It's a tough pill to swallow, especially against the Cardinals, which are a division rival, and that game would have got you back to 500. So it was a tough pill to swallow, but they are back to only 2 games under 500. They are 3 games out of the division heading into tonight against the Phillies, which Jamison Tyon's on the mound, so they'll probably be 4 games out after tonight. And I'll trade you Jamison Tyon for any pitch. You want to give me Ronaldo Lopez, I'll give you Jamison Tyon. I'll do that in a heartbeat. Or Aaron Bummer, we could use a lefty. But no, I would. The Cubs are back in it, and David Kaplan's reporting that the Cubs ownership, or not ownership, I should say front office, is all in on winning this division.
Where is David Kaplan getting that from?
Well, David Kaplan's very connected to the organization. He's always been very connected to the organization. So much so that a lot of people actually thought when Marquee Network was coming out that he was leaving ESPN Radio to become a part of Marquee Network. He's always been tapped in. So I believe what he said, and it was kind of confirmed today by the guy who covers the Cubs for ESPN as well. And so I believe it to be true. And so if they are all in on winning this division, I don't believe Cubs fans should be too excited about that.
No.
Unless you're so
they need 2 middle of the order hitters. They need another starter. They need a setup guy and a closer.
Hold on.
5 players, and they need to be good.
We're not the White Sox
for anything. They're going to compete for anything. They need that.
So, well, let's look at this realistically.
The Sox have a middle of they do have a middle of the order hitter. His name's Louis Robert Jr. But anyway,
you're not replacing Ian Happ.
They need those 5 things.
But where? You're not replacing Ian Happ. You're not replacing.
Ian Happ is not a middle of the order hitter. He is not.
He's a 3-4-5 hitter. Yeah, he is.
He is not a 3-4-5 hitter. Are you out of your mind?
He's one of their more consistent, solid. Yes,
he's not the league's 3-4-5 hitter. He is not. Look at the Angels. Look at the Yankees. Look at the Rays. I mean, there's a lot of teams in this league. They do not have a middle of the order hitter. They don't. You need too much to trade away to make the team a contender. And if you're not going to make the team a contender, then what's the point? I mean,
well, that's kind of what I'm getting at. But what I'm getting at is that you can't. There's spots in here. This team is pretty much set. You're not going out and getting a position player other than maybe a third baseman. They're not taking out any of these outfielders. You're too rich in the outfield.
I get you now. Okay.
To go do it. You're not replacing Dansby Swanson. You're not replacing Nico Horner. You're not replacing Cody Bellinger. You're not doing any of that. Not through the trade deadline when you're adding pieces.
No.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got you.
So they need to add a solid relief pitcher. Like you said, they've got to go out and get a left-handed relief pitcher. No matter what. Got to go get one. As a matter of fact, I would go get one today with the Phillies in town because they got a lot of left-handed power in their lineup. But I just don't know that this excites me as a Cubs fan because even if you go out, let's say we go out and get Matt Chapman. Well, then let's say they do a deal with the White Sox like they tend to do once every 5 or 6 years, and the Cubs get fleeced out of a couple of young studs in their farm system to go out and get an aging pitcher, Lucas Giolito. Those are the types of guys that I think that the Cubs will end up going to go and get. Will they get a Matt Chapman? Because the Blue Jays are 10 games out of their division. They fall any further out of that. Matt Chapman's a free agent at the end of the year. They're going to move him at the trade deadline. It becomes one of those seasons for the Toronto Blue Jays where you just start trading away your expiring contracts.
That thing was less long than the Sox. I mean, the Sox were further along, and that thing's already done. I mean, go on.
So short of doing that, you go out, you get Matt Chapman, and you go out and you get Lucas Giolito, and with a package with like a guy like maybe Aaron Bummer, who I wouldn't be extremely excited about, but the fact that he's a left-handed arm in my bullpen, I'd be okay with. It's got good stuff. He's got potential. Maybe he needs a change of scenery, whatever the case is. You go out and you do that. I might get a little excited because with this pitching staff, you get into October, and that's what plays in October. When you look at this pitching staff and say you have a Lucas Giolito, say you have Lucas Giolito pitching well, you still have Stroman pitching well, and you still have Steele pitching well. So that top 3 right there puts you in contention because anything can happen in October. I'm not saying, don't get me wrong. The Cubs are not the Braves. The Cubs are not the Dodgers. Mm-hmm. I don't expect them to beat those teams, but you have a chance with that team. The way they're playing right now, they had a really bad stretch in May. But the way they've been playing in April and the way they've played in June, this team is good enough to put it. They're the only team in their they're one of 3 teams, I believe, in the National League that have a positive run differential. So this lineup is working.
I don't know how much stock I put into that. The run differential, I do put some stock in it, but I just think you keep your powder dry at this point. Like, there's no reason. Let these rookies. Let's see who they are at least. Or these rookies, these guys in the farm system. Let's see who they are. Maybe they turn a season around. That happens a lot in the minors, where a guy figures it out at the end, at the last half of a season. I don't think pulling a trade right now is worth it unless you're nibbling at the edges. That's fine with me. You get a guy. The Sox have a guy, Gregory Santos, who you can get pretty, you probably won't have to give up a lot, and that guy can close for you. He throws strikes. He has a 101 mile an hour sinker. He has a 93 mile an hour slider. I mean, the guy can really pitch. Or even that Kenyon Middleton. If you're looking at the Sox, you don't even have to look at the Sox. There's other teams that have guys to where you can nibble at the edge. I just think if you go out and get a guy who has a good contract, if you get a guy like, when they got, they were a better team when they got Quintana from the Sox.
I see. Look, so I think PCA is not the piece that they will trade. PCA, and they got the pitcher that they are high on. I believe his name's Cade Horton. Those two guys, they're not going to trade. PCA is they said right now, and this coming from a lot of scouts around the league, if Pete Crow Armstrong was in the major leagues, he'd probably only be hitting like 220, 230, but he'd be a Gold Glove center fielder. So that's pretty high praise for a guy that is never stepped foot on a major league field.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they're not going to trade PCA. They will trade Brendan Davis. They will trade the Alcantara kid. They've got a couple pitching prospects. They will trade. Not the Alcantara kid that murdered anybody. That kid was already released, so he's not even in the league. I did. You were in the middle of drinking a beer, so I knew you couldn't get it out, so I wanted to get it before you did. I pulled an 8 Mile on you. But that is... Jeremiah says, that was sarcastic, by the way. That would be a ridiculous trade. Quintana-esque. It would be. And the Cubs aren't going to make that decision again. However, they could trade PCA for a Matt Chapman. They might pull that trigger. They might pull that trigger. And that would be a spot where I actually might be okay with it because of how rich they are in the outfield.
You're making me look up something now.
Go ahead. You go ahead and look it up. But I do believe that the Cubs are going to make moves. I don't think it's a matter of whether or not they make a move. I just think it's matter of how big of a splash are they willing to make. They're definitely going to go out and get a left-handed arm in the pen. That's 100% certain. They might go out and get 2 left-handed arms in the pen. And the only offensive position that they are going to add would be one of the corner positions. You might go out and get a first baseman, but I just don't know who you would go. I don't know what first baseman would be out there and available. So
Andrew Vaughn's pretty good. Matt Chapman's got 2 years on his contract, so he'll be 2 years, year and a half now on his contract. I guess he's not a bad pickup. You have to tell me what they're giving up. I'm not giving up a big chunk of the future. I'm giving up a guy who's maybe mid of your farm system and a guy to be named later. Like I can't give more than that up. I mean,
right. Chapman's deal though is on it's a player option. He's expected to opt out of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Because he thinks he can make more money.
Which he probably can.
Yeah.
I don't see that in the car. I just don't see. I don't see any reason to not just keep your powder dry. There's no name out there that's going to win you a championship. There's just too many pieces they need.
I'm with you
in too many different areas. Yeah.
But
and
if you get into October
in for this team it's troubling to me a little bit. That they be all in on this team. I mean, not to say that they're not good. I mean, they've achieved basically what we thought we were going to achieve, which is a lot to say in baseball. When a team does what you think they're going to do in a good way, that's a lot to say in baseball. People take that for granted. Look at the Blue Jays, who we just talked about. that team, man, the way they hit, the way they were pitching, Robbie Ray, all that stuff, Bichette, all the guys that they have on that team crackling. I mean, a Carlos Rodon at the top of his game could barely handle them. And we're talking about one of the best swing and miss left-handed pitchers in the league a couple of years ago. I mean, and that team might have to sell. That to me is that team.
Is he even in the league anymore, Carlos Rodon?
He was hurt, which that's why the Sox let him go. He was hurt, and he's got that giant contract with the Yankees. It's like 5 years, $130 million. But man, with that arm, he's got some of the best swing and miss stuff out there. But I think the Sox knew that he wasn't going to be able to, sustain it with the shoulder, which doctors still don't know a lot about a shoulder, but.
I want to get to that too, but Jeremiah Murray says just sign Chapman and Ohtani next year with all that Wrigleyville money. What's $700 million anyway? I'm on the Ohtani train. I've said this since before the season started. They skimped out, and I'm not saying skimped out on a shortstop because I do like Dansby Swanson, but they didn't go out and get, Trey Turner and spend that type of Trey Turner money or Carlos Correa money because they were saving it for Ohtani. And I do believe, I don't think they're going to give him $600 million over 10 years, but I think they're going to give him a high AAV over 6 or 7 and that might land him there. Ohtani.
Where? Land him where?
In Chicago with the Cubs.
For 7 years?
Yep.
Are you fucking kidding me? He's signing a $10 million.
So you're telling me. You're telling me 60 million over 10 years, or if I offer you six years at 80 million a year, you're going to balk at it?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to get more.
You're making the same amount of money in less years.
The Ricketts changed their last name to Cohen.
And that's the thing. Like, I don't know how it's going to shake out. Maybe they do give him a 10-year deal. But I do believe they're going to be in the running for him. I don't know that they land him. But I do believe they're going to be in the running for him. But I want to get back to what you were saying about, the Rodon thing. That's kind of the way I kind of feel about Stroman. Stroman's never been this good.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not so sure that I want to hurry up and give him 4 or 5 years at 30 or 40 million like he wants to get. I'm okay with 3 years at whatever the market calls for. But you can't point me in any direction that says that he can sustain this. Much like you were saying with Carlos Rodon. Like, I don't know that you're going to be this way, and you're already 33. I don't want to be paying this guy when he's 36, 37 years old.
Yeah, and at the risk of starting an argument,
God,
the National League is still not the same hitting league as the American League.
You shut your mouth right now. It's the same exact thing. They have a DH now. It's the same exact league.
We'll get the staff to look.
And with Shohei Ohtani is a DH for the Cubs next year.
We'll get the
ace of the Cubs next year.
We'll get the staff to crunch the numbers, but I feel like the American League is still well above the National League in offense, and that Stroman, playing in the National League has helped him. Now, it was much different when the pitcher was batting and the worst, batter on your team was batting every third inning, but that's not happening anymore. So I have to believe the numbers are good, and he did pitch for a while mostly in a very competitive division. But you're right. I mean, tell me how many big pitching contracts worked out. I mean, maybe in the front half, that's what you're basically paying for in most contracts in sports, is the front half of the contract. But I mean, there's just not a lot of pitching contracts that work out, and this guy has all the trademarks that we talk about. All the trademarks of a bad pitching extension / long contract. He has all the trademarks. He has all the Barry Zito trademarks.
Still, you son of a bitch.
But I think you agree. I mean, do you want Marcus Stroman on the Cubs for the next 5-6 years? I mean, do you want, and the guy between the ears has not always been consistent. I mean, he is a little bit of a basket case.
Yeah.
He makes Chris Sales at least seem a little sane sometimes.
Yeah, he's a different cat, and he's had some, he's I think when he first came to Chicago, there was a little issue with some of the comments he was making on Twitter or whatever. But I do like Stroman, and I do hope that he performs well. I just, again, 3 years I'd be okay with at whatever the market calls for, whether it's 30, 35 million a year. I'm fine with that. Anything more than that, I don't want to pay him. I don't want to give you a 5-year contract. And if I do, I might give you 3 years with the final 2 years being club options. I might do that. What's going on, Junior?
Hey, old man. Brandon Combs
Yeah.
checking in. Good to hear from your buddy.
I just don't. Jeremiah Murray says the same thing. Career year at 33, stay away. Just don't say anything about his do-rag. He's no Kevin Durant. So yeah, I don't know. And that's where I'm at. Like, I don't think that they need to go out and do anything. I'm with you. They just stand pat, because even if you do go out and make a move for a Lucas Giolito, even if you do go out and make a move for a Matt Chapman, I'm not telling you right now that Giolito, Stroman, and Steele are that much better than Stroman, Steele, and Hendricks right now. And so I'm okay with standing pat with that, because, like I said, anything can happen, especially if your pitching is hot in the playoffs. That's just where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, I just see no reason to give up any of the future. I mean, and some of the guys who you've detailed many times on this show that are in your farm system, people might not want. They're just not performing. I could see if all these guys were performing well, and maybe, oh yeah, our outfield is kind of stacked. Maybe we give one of these outfielders away. But if they're batting 230, like, are you going to get them? Or are those teams, or are the Blue Jays going to go, no, why? When we have the guy on the Dodgers who's batting 360. Because
Right.
the Dodgers have a great farm system and they're good on the field. They have both things happening at the same time. Chicago teams can't seem to do that, but the Dodgers, year after year, seem to be able to.
Yeah, and that's the Dodgers do it. The Red Sox and Yankees seem to be able to do it. The Phillies seem to be able to do it. The Phillies are always a good organization. The Cardinals.
Are the Cardinals
seem to do it.
Team in the National League?
They are.
Yeah. What do you think about that whole London trip? I mean, was that? I mean, if the Cubs dropped 3 games here, what do you think about the London trip?
Well, even if they win all 3 games here, I don't like my team going to London. It's just there's no point for it. You're not going to put a team over there. I was fine with the teams going over to Mexico. I'm fine with maybe doing a series in Hawaii,
Puerto Rico, yeah.
Puerto Rico. You know what I mean? Like other places where you could feasibly try to bring fans in. After you leave London, after that 2-game series is over, nobody in London thinks about baseball. They are a soccer country. That's just what they do. That's what they know over there. They love that sport, and that's fine. There's no reason for us to go over there. Stop trying to market things that you don't need to market.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make much sense. Plus the travel. Junior, why do you have a pillow in your window? Well, Junior, I will tell you this. Sometimes you have a 5-year-old. A 5-year-old stands up on a stool, puts a pillow in your window. You don't notice it until 49 minutes into your podcast. Because you've been working all day and you walked in and just turned on your laptop and started the show. But it's good observation, though, Junior. Like it.
Jeremiah says, I think Combs peed a little when he confirmed the Cardinals are the worst in the NL.
Or jerked off a little.
I don't hate it. I really don't. I mean, it's about time. And we're starting to see, it's kind of like I'm going to be excited to see it happen with the Packers this year, too.
Oh, yeah.
You're finally starting to see some regression from a team that's just been so good for so long that you just hate. And I admit, look, they're a model organization. I wish the Cubs were more like the St. Louis Cardinals as an organization. I do. But I'm happy to see that they are the worst in the National League right now. Yes, I absolutely am. And so I don't like the London trip because it's just not, for one, it's not fair to the teams.
No. That's my main thing about it.
Yeah. And especially teams that are, if you're sending teams over there that are in pennant races. You know what I mean? Like if you're sending teams over there that have a chance, like would anybody have batted an eye if it was? I'm trying to think of.
You can't if it was like the A's against
the A's against the Cardinals,
or against the Kansas City Royals. But
right
before the season started, yeah, you could guess those teams would be bad. But do you really know? Fuck the Cardinals.
Attaboy.
You're just rocking it today.
I don't like the London Series. I think it's a bad attempt for baseball to market a sport in another country when they can't even market the sport in their own damn country. You can't even market the sport over here. What the hell are you doing trying to go to London?
Because you don't have enough countries who play your sport.
And then, oh God, you got me started now. Then you go to London. And what do you do for the national broadcast on Sunday? Do you have one announcer from each organization there? Do you have from the best rivalry in baseball? Do you have, Boog Sciambi and whatever Cardinal announcer you want to put on the broadcast? Do you have that? No. You put Michael Kay and A-Rod stroking each other off for 9 innings about their egos and how great they are. And that's what you do on a national setting. You put those two yahoos in the booth. Give me a break. It was terrible.
He hasn't gotten better. That's the problem with A-Rod. Is when he first started, it was like, yeah, okay, he's got some whatever. I try to take anybody with like an open mind, even though I never liked A-Rod.
Michael Kay's terrible too.
The reason why a lot of people don't like him, but he's great talent, all that. Let's take him with an open mind. He's never grown as a broadcaster. Not once. He has not grown. And I've seen a lot of broadcasters grow and like a lot of athletes grow into it. Look at Greg Olson in the NFL. I mean, he wasn't terrible when he started, but he wasn't very good. Now he's one of the best broadcasters in the sport. He's one of the few broadcasters you can listen to because football broadcasters are terrible.
Yeah.
But, just by rule.
And the other problem is that some of those guys that are good, they start to know that they're good, and then they become terrible. Troy Aikman.
Yes. True. I still think Troy Aikman's okay, but sometimes, let's not go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, I mean that it's just terrible. It's like you were saying last week. Like, can we have broadcasters that are actually want to watch the sport?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter if they played the sport or not. Can we have broadcasters who actually like and enjoy watching the sport and can tell you what's happening on TV and not sell some kind of narrative that they formulated before the game because they're lazy?
This was a legitimate A-Rod call on the broadcast after Trey Mancini drops that ball. You know what he said? He goes,
love to hear it.
You can't have that. You got to have a first baseman that can catch the ball. Thank you, A-Rod. Thank you. Thank you for that beautiful analysis from a player who played the game for so many years. Did you start shooting steroids in your freaking brain?
Up your butt, Joe Boo.
You have to have a first baseman that can catch the ball. Can catch the ball. Are you kidding me? Like this is what you're giving people that are watching the game in London. I like. It's so bad. It's so pathetic. I don't need
that PPP do it at this point.
Oh God.
Just have the AI do it.
Let's do Fitz gibberish.
You need a palate cleanser at this point.
Well, I mean, if A-Rod can't make you sound better, nobody can.
You son of a bitch.
That was for the NL is not a good hitting as the AL comment.
And I said you didn't have a middle of the order batter. Yes, it's another edition of Fitz gibberish. It's a diatribe, a conspiracy, and an island in the middle of unapologetic and sometimes inaccurate sports talk. Actually, most times. I think I got about 3 or 4 names wrong today.
Like when you said Ian Happ wasn't a middle of the order hitter, but his batting gloves are going to Cooperstown because he hit 2 home runs in a game in London.
Wow, he hit 2 home runs in a game. Jesus Christ. Luis Robert hits 2 home runs when he wakes up out of bed, for Christ's sake. Anyway.
And then he breaks a leg getting out of bed.
He's been healthy this year. Langston Hughes asked, what happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load.
Whoa.
You can probably understand my reluctance with sharing a quote from the 1951 Harlem Renaissance on a Chicago sports radio podcast. Sort of like throwing a $1,000 bouquet in a wood chipper. But as I watch the White Sox Angels series, I'm reminded that with every great team or player, there's a line of 5 or 10 who shit the bed. Although with these 2 teams, you have to stand and mouth agape awe, like a crystal meth addict showing their remaining teeth at the waste of talent. Hughes was talking about something entirely and certainly don't want to take entirely different, certainly don't want to take away from that. The problem is watching these teams is like finally getting Cindy Crawford to go home with you circa 1989, only to have her called away to Richard Gere's house. That would sag like a heavy load. Indeed. She still looks good for her age, actually. You agree? It sounds like
I do.
You don't. Is Michelle not in the room? I think.
No, I agree. Even if Michelle was in the room, I agree.
She's like 60. Anyway, we spoke about Joey.
Michelle is only 37. You jerk.
I never said that. Unbelievable.
Telling her.
Unbelievable. This guy still better be coming on the 4th. We spoke about Shohei Ohtani last week. The fireballer is leading the AL in home runs and a lot of other categories on both sides of the diamond. Do you know who's second in home runs? Yes, that would be Luis Robert Jr., the hyper-talented center fielder that Doubting Thomas doesn't like, who hit 2 home runs against Boston and made it 2 very difficult catches look easy in center on Sunday, and hit another home run last night against your Anaheim Angels. Stop the presses. If you trust in war, I'll tell you the value of this player, Luis Robert, is better than the value of Mike Trout through half of the season. Certainly a little bit more than a sample size at this point. Mike Trout's having problems with the high fastball. Yes, the Angels have Mike Trout too. Maybe the best sequence in baseball this season will be the last at-bat of the World Baseball Classic. We talked about it when Ohtani struck out Trout to win. The White Sox have Dylan Cease, who came in second in the Cy Young last year. He has not been great this year, but he's worked his ERA under 3. It was over 6 in April, as we talked about. Has over 100 strikeouts and now 91 innings. White Sox have Yohan Moncada at third, a switch-hitting ball of talent with 34 doubles, 25 home runs, and batted .315 in 2019. Oh my God, they have a bright future, don't they? Other than an above-average 2021 season, he has been consistently bad since then. The Angels have a great third baseman too, Anthony Rendon. Remember him? I am surprised if you do, because he's had 22 home runs in the last 3.5 years. And right after the Angels got him, he had 34 home runs and was third in MVP voting. That's real MVP voting, Combs. Third in 2019. The list goes on, and the similarities of these two teams do as well. How have these teams underachieved so mightily? Some of it is certainly some bad luck, but it's also bad baseball decisions. Too often drafting to talent and not the man behind it. I can fall back on my old trusted, these teams are not innovating on the battlefield of the intellectual creativity, which sounds pompous and terrible now that I hear it out loud. But I might be right. In the end, though, is it just not enough guys to back up and complement these players? Rick Hahn said the Sox were mired in mediocrity back in 2016 and would be famous if this team actually had fans, but had the two best left-handed starters in the American League that year in 2016. Maybe they were mired in team building. Although I hate mixing sports, we have another team that has been mired in this city, the Chicago Bears. They certainly picked up some talent in this offseason, but will they be looking back on what should have been with a lot of talented players, but no playoffs or championships? That's Fitz gibberish, my friends. Mr. Combs?
I'm going to leave this one to the fans. Jeremiah Murray says, Richard Gere, heavy loads, meth heads, and Cindy Crawford, and we haven't even started yet. Doubting Thomas says, I knew it was coming this week with Luis Robert.
Yeah, boy.
Jeremiah Murray says, speaking of war, combined war of Schwarber, Rizzo, Bryant, and Baez. Anybody? 0.4 is the correct answer. Jeremiah Murray, you win because that is a topic we were going to talk about.
Goddamn right we were.
Did
you really have to?
People, Cubs fans, I should say, that don't actually... Every fan base has two groups of fans. Well, actually, really three groups of fans, right? The one group of fans that are really in tune with the organization, that really love the game, really love the sport, and really love their team, and they follow everything. They could tell you who's coming up in the minors. They could tell you what's going on in the front office, whose contracts are expiring, and everything that's going on in just about every game. Then you have another group of fans that like the team for whatever reason, but don't know a ton about what's going on in the front office, don't know a ton about this, don't know a ton about that. And you can really tell those types of fans. Then the third set of fans are just the fans that are just there because they got the tickets for free. Those are your three types of fans. So the second type of fans are the ones who are like, you know what, we should have never traded Rizzo, and we should have never traded Bryant, and we should have never traded Schwarber, and we should have kept Baez. Like, we shouldn't have traded that big core. Yeah, we should have. And they did it at the right time. And we talked about this before the show. And Rizzo was maybe the one that you said, hey, you know, they should have kept Rizzo.
I think they were a year or two late, too. I think they got more for those players. But
yes.
Go on.
Colorado wanted to give the Cubs straight up Nolan Arenado for Chris Bryant.
Yep.
And they didn't pull that trigger. And I said at the time I would have pulled that trigger quick. And that was in 2018.
And what do you get for Kyle Schwarber years before he's a 0.8 WAR player? What do you get for Kyle Schwarber, really, from an American League team when the DH is still just in the American League? I mean,
yes, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I don't think that this team. I don't think that. I think they got better faster because they cut ties with those guys, even though they did cut them a couple years too late. By cutting ties with those guys, especially those three, Bryant, Baez, and Schwarber. Now, Rizzo, you can argue just because Rizzo's just one of those guys you just want to have on your team. It just is. The Gold Glove defender, and he's a leader. He's the heart and soul of a team.
Smart
when he's on
player
a team.
too, and he's a left-handed first baseman. I mean, those guys are worth a lot. I just don't know. There wasn't really a big there was no reason to see he would regress quickly. Yeah.
They keep picking up players that are on the way out. I don't think that. I think they keep picking up
Sox there. I think we're definitely talking about the Sox and the Angels there.
Yeah.
Correct us if we're wrong, Shanna, but I think she's talking about the Sox and Angels there, which they both do. I mean, look at Rendon. I mean, look at some of the players the Sox have picked up. Elvis Andrews. I mean, I'm not saying he's a great player, smart player, but I think that's what she was talking about, or giving away players.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, giving away those players, I mean, you got PCA for Baez. That was how the Cubs landed Pete Crow Armstrong. Getting rid of Bryant landed you Wesneski. Getting rid of Rizzo brought over a couple of pitchers. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Remember them. That's not a good sign.
Yeah. Well, no, because I'm terrible with names anyway.
And then you got a guy batting 230 that you got for bipolar Baez. Yeah, I get it. Baez sucks, but guy's batting 230 in the minors. I mean,
and he's a Gold Glove center fielder.
Let Schwarber walk.
Well, letting Schwarber walk, I think they should have gotten something. That's why I said last week about same thing with Stroman. I don't like the idea of letting him go and not getting anything in return. And that was the thing with Schwarber. You let him go for nothing. But as my guy David Kaplan, who I like to listen to here in Chicago on ESPN Radio, which is also where I've got some of the information today about the .4 was on his show. But he keeps calling Kyle Schwarber most famously a beer league softball player. And he said it again today, and then Schwarber led off the game with a ringing double to right center field. But he is a beer league softball. He's batting 188 heading into today.
Yeah.
Batting 188.
Yeah, it's frustrating to watch a guy like that, especially batting. I mean, talk about a guy who guess hits. You see a guy guess hitting. He guesses and looks at pitches, and then he bitches when they're like 1 inch of 1 centimeter outside or whatever, and it should have been it's like, dude, you got to swing at that with 2 strikes, buddy.
Yeah, and he's just one of those guys that he only does one thing. He hits home runs. I mean, you saw for how many years on the South Side with Adam Dunn.
Yeah.
That's what he is. He's Adam Dunn.
I mean, actually, Adam Dunn is a way better WAR player, like way better. I mean, look at them both. He's like double the player, and Kyle Schwarber, unless he plays till he's 45, probably won't achieve what Adam Dunn did, and that's tough. And
he struck out 98 times heading into tonight. It's June.
That's where you get to where you have to evaluate your talent. They thought the guy was Babe Ruth. He's not even Adam Dunn.
Nah. Yeah.
I mean, and you got to evaluate your talent. Not only that, you have to do stuff on the edges. That's what the Anaheim Angels were. Everybody's so confused why the Anaheim Angels, and they have the 2 best players in the league. Why aren't they so much better? Because they're not innovating. And they're not doing stuff on the edges that these other teams are. These 80% players, these 70% players, these 60% players. I mean, they're just not doing that stuff. They're not bringing those players in. Those, 60% of, Nolan Arenado at third would be fine for the Cubs. 70% maybe. They don't even have that. Like, I'm not picking on the Cubs right now, but I'm saying the Angels don't even have that for Anthony Rondon, who's now out hurt again. I don't even think he's played a full season since they've gotten him. But
he has not. And Jeremiah Murray comes at me like a cowboy in an old Western. We don't mention Adam Dunn around here, Combs.
You don't.
Shanna does say the White Sox have really got it screwed up. That's true. I love them, but they need a change of management. Yeah. So, look, with the Cubs, I think they got it right. I do like some of the pieces that you got, but again, sometimes you get trades right, sometimes you get trades wrong. And those are a couple that they got right. You know, they have also gotten a couple wrong. Eloy Jimenez and Dylan Cease on the other side of town. That's a prime example of one that they got wrong. Yeah. So, you know, and that's what you want to see. I don't think that the Cubs got it wrong.
Whew. Eloy is healthy.
Yeah.
And what he even said, like I talk about percentages, if he's 80% of what people thought he was going to be, boy, that's a really bad trade. But you're right, that does go wrong. If Quintana has a 2 ERA and they win the World Series, who gives a crap?
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
I mean, who gives a crap? What happens after that? That just didn't happen. That's the bad part of the trade, really.
All right, so we're running a little over. You want to talk Bears? Or you want to talk Blackhawks?
Bears.
All right, let's talk Bears. So
we got our Blackhawks expert for next week.
We have our what?
Our Blackhawks expert for next week.
I thought you said Blackhawk sexpert. I was like, what the hell are you?
Want it to be that.
Kind of.
They talked about Chris. It's Cindy Crawford. You can't get around. Is it the freckle or the mole that she has?
Well, them getting Taylor Hall and Connor Bedard is kind of sexy to me. So I do like that. But we'll save that talk for next week. So with the Bears, Alex Shapiro reported from Bears camp that a lot less balls are hitting the turf in training camp than there were last year. What stock do you take into training camp reps?
We'll be at training camp as well. We're going to try to get out there and get some interviews with some Bears fans. One of these weeks, probably won't be for another month, but we're going to try to get out there. We'll probably stay the night and get bombed somewhere or halfway bombed.
I'm in.
You'll have your thermos.
You had me at bombed.
But, it just about, I think Adam Johns is an okay, reporter. I put some stock into what he's going to say about things, but not a whole lot. I mean, they have a lot of yes men around that Bears team, and I've heard this before, but it's hard to not think that something's got to be going better in that training camp than last year. They just didn't have any pieces last year. I think this offense is going to be a lot better, man. I think if this offense isn't a top 10 offense, something cataclysmic has happened. If it's not a top 10 offense and they're relatively healthy, I don't think Justin Fields is on this team.
Yeah.
2024, but I just don't see that happening.
I'm with you. And look, we are both on the same train with Justin Fields. We both believe he's going to be good. I wouldn't even say cautiously optimistic about Justin Fields. I'm just optimistic about Justin Fields. But I'm not saying he's proven anything yet. That's where I think people get it confused. I'm not saying that this guy has shown that he is an elite quarterback in this league, because he has not shown that yet. But I do believe he will. Things that I've seen him do on the field, things that I've watched in the way that I saw him throw at college when he had weapons, which is the only thing we have to go by, because he hasn't had that since he's been a pro, is that he's a good passer. And this guy now has weapons. This guy has talent around him. Also, I heard from sources today that the Bears are really close on a deal with Yannick Ngakoue, and they expect that deal to be done by the end of the week. So I do believe the Bears are going to be much improved from last year. I do believe that they are 11, 12-win team. I do believe that. I don't, however, take any stock into training camp reps. I don't care. Same way I don't care about the combine. I don't care what my quarterback can do when he has no pressure on him. I don't care what my quarterback can do in shorts and no pads. Yes, I don't care what you're doing when you're playing catch in the backyard. because that is essentially what you are doing in training camp. I do like the fact that what I do take stock into in training camp is developing a rapport with your wide receivers, developing a relationship with your wide receivers, developing a relationship with your offensive line. That is the stuff that I like. I don't care how many balls are hitting the turf. I don't care how many balls are being overthrown, underthrown, thrown on the dime, because that is not going to translate into NFL games. It's not the same thing. And I don't care. One of the other things that he says, well, you're seeing guys like Dante Pettis catch passes, and you're seeing guys like Velus Jones. They're catching passes. Well, cool. But I've never seen them do it in an NFL game.
No.
So I do want to pump the brakes on that a little bit. I do need to see it happen. I do believe it will happen. Not maybe the Pettis or the Velus Jones thing, but I do believe the Bears are going to be better. I do believe they have the right quarterback. I do believe they have the right front office. I do believe that they are really good moving forward. I do believe we're finally going to be a good organization moving forward. And for me, that is where I get my optimism. That is where what I like, because of what I've seen on the field plus the pieces that they've added. And that's where I'm at with the Bears. That's why I think they're an 11-win team, not because Justin Fields can hit an open wide receiver in basketball shorts. Could care less.
I mean, are they in basketball shorts?
Yeah, they're not wearing pads and uniform. They're wearing whatever, just a jersey, and they're wearing shorts.
Yeah, I guess I mean, until they get in true training camp, I guess they kind of have pads on. They don't hit a lot in training camp anymore. It's not like freaking Platteville 1984 when
men were men.
When Steve McMichael was giving himself Lou Gehrig's disease.
Oh God!
You might need to water it down a little bit.
There,
let's water it down. Cindy Crawford. This got it, ladies.
I'm fine. I'm fine if.
Wait a second. What was that noise?
I said, "Ooh." I said, "I'm fine with." Shanna says they're in wide leg shorts.
Those are wide legs, I think.
Oh God. I'm fine with killing off McCaskey. I'm fine with killing off Reinsdorf. I'm fine with killing off owners that don't put forth effort. I don't want to talk about Mongo giving himself an ALS. That's my line.
Too much.
No,
Yeah,
I'm just joking. You're good. Just remember that Fitz said it, not Combs. Just remember that Fitz said it, and not Combs.
Yes, if we're trying to get an interview, you'll have to just do the interviews. I'll stay at home.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes to training camp, you can see some things. I mean, especially when they're practicing with other teams, when we get back into pads, who's better than others. That's how they separate talent. And usually that does work out when they're separating who's going to start and who's not, especially from some parts of the edges. But yeah, I mean, I don't put a lot of stock in it. I'm very optimistic and bullish on this team. I just am. And most of it is, football's not a very unpredictable sport. I mean, you get a good, and it could change a little bit, but you get a good schedule in football. And you stay relatively healthy. You're making the playoffs like that. There's not really much more to it than that.
Yeah.
If you stay relatively healthy, like your quarterback stays healthy, most guys on your offensive and defensive line stay healthy. Some of your positional or talent players stay healthy. You're going to be okay.
Doubting Thomas says, show a bikini photo of Ginny McCaskey.
Jeremiah
Murray said they made
this is a 1930s speakeasy. Hey, Ginny, get over here. I'll get you a martini.
Jeremiah Murray said they made him out of woolly mammoth in her day, Doubting Thomas. All right. It's that time.
Any rubble?
Where it's closing time. It's that time where we get to tell you guys goodbye. But before we do, we always get into the news of the week. You ready to get into the news of the week?
All right, let's get into it.
All right.
Long or something.
We do. We need some sort of something. All right. So the reason why I'm going with this story first, and this is probably a story that you've heard, and probably a story that anybody who's, a decent baseball fan has heard, but every so often, friends realize that maybe, just maybe, they should be with the other person's significant other. On this day in 1973, or 1873, I should say, Yankees pitchers Mike Kekich and Fitz Peterson went beyond that point, trading their families. They traded their wives and kids to one another. Now, I want you to put this in perspective. Okay, it's 1873. This was a different time in our country's history.
Mm-hmm.
But I want you to imagine coming home from a day of Combs and Fitz and saying to yourself, Nicole, you and our son need to pack things up because you're going to Combs for his wife and kid and a pack of smokes. What? What the hell was going? Like, how can you imagine? Do you imagine what the dude? Look, me and Michelle have a great relationship. We joke around, we laugh all the time. I can joke with her about just about anything. She could joke with me just about anything. If we do fight, typically it's over within a 24-hour span. One of us usually apologizes and we get over it. But if I had that conversation with her, I'd be afraid I'd be stabbed.
As soon as I put this hot poker in my ass, I'm going to chop my dick off.
What do you think that conversation was like when they got home? How did they announce this trade?
Awkward.
How do you announce it? Like, who goes first? Like, I'm drawing. Like, we're like, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't even like. I don't even
have that conversation when you.
No. We might as well just trade them both in and just go live together.
You smoke an incredible amount of weed. Maybe you have that conversation.
That weed's got to be laced with something.
Everybody settle down. Crystal meth.
Yes.
No, that probably wouldn't be good. They'll chew your face off.
Dude.
What you do, you go home and you show them this picture and you have a conversation.
How did one of those guys not...
Which guy, the left or the right?
How did they not die that day?
I don't know.
And it wasn't 1873. I'm looking it up right now. It was 1973.
There you go. 1873 seemed a little bit long.
Yeah, 1973.
They didn't have trades back then.
Mike Kekich and Fitz Peterson. First of all,
trading gonorrhea for
if you married a guy named Fritz, you better expect to be traded.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Murray, which wife had a better war? I guarantee you both of them had a better war than the 4 guys the Cubs traded.
Probably.
That is it's completely insane to me. All right, what's your story?
Speaking of dead, a 76-year-old woman who was declared dead at a hospital in Ecuador astonished her relatives by knocking on her coffin during her wake. What is going on in Ecuador?
Doubting Thomas said, I'll make that trade, and I'll include an ex-wife to be named later.
Long drive to Grand Rapids.
All right, go on. Ecuador people are knocking on coffins. Go ahead. Sorry. We're an hour and a half in, Fitz.
A 76-year-old woman who was declared dead at a hospital in Ecuador astonished her relatives by knocking on her coffin during her wake. And the incident has prompted a government investigation. Obviously, I don't know what the government's doing over there. Yeah, relatives left a coffin behind and rushed to retired nurse Bella Montoya. Sounds like a, I don't know,
Mafia hit.
Bullpen coach for the Sox. Back to the hospital after the wake Friday in central city of Babayana. Son Gilberto Barbara told the Associated Press, "It sucks that I'm not getting your money now, Mom. No, it gave us a fright. Are you kidding me? It gave us a fright." I mean, how do you know someone isn't? How do you not know someone isn't dead in this day and age?
Jeremiah Murray says, and the husband claimed he heard nothing.
We heard nothing. What in the hell? Shanna says it's voodoo.
Okay, so
Probably is.
Okay, so there's a process to these things.
Yeah,
right?
don't you? Yeah, I mean, was she wasn't even embalmed? I'm guessing.
Well, right, but that's my question. Is that it's not like if you or I die, or we have a family member that dies, we're not at a wake 3 hours later.
No, it's
it's like a week usually.
Taking a nap.
Well, right. That's what I don't like.
How long? Yeah, I mean, luckily they did it.
I'm questioning the validity of this story.
It's the Associated Press, man.
I'm still questioning the validity because it just doesn't like. And then even after you're pronounced dead, you go into a refrigerator when you're at the morgue, so your body doesn't start rotting and stinking. You get embalmed. There's all sorts of makeup. They do things with your body to make you look presentable. Like Shanna says, they don't usually embalm bodies in third world countries unless you're rich. Okay, I'll give you that one. But they still put you in a refrigerator. Like that brings your body to a temperature that
in Ecuador, it's like 120 degrees. The old bag probably loved it.
Man. I don't know. That's crazy though. But after how many days she's knocking? Like, can you imagine being at a wake?
You're 76. You're a nurse.
It's Ecuador comes. They probably just have a pile.
Yeah. She climbed out of the pile. I'm just saying that you're a nurse. You're a nurse in Ecuador.
Yeah.
I mean, just think about it. You're probably hot all the time. They put you in a nice, cool place. Finally, let's say they do have a morgue and they do have refrigeration, which is saying a lot. Maybe this is a way for her to get over the wall, over Trump's wall.
Oh, God. Not politics.
But I'm just saying, that you put her in a nice, cool, dry place.
Yeah. Man.
They have burial laws.
In those countries have 24 hours.
I think I'm guessing that she kills zombies for a living, Shanna.
She either kills zombies or she is one.
Yes.
Which one is it?
How do their brains taste?
What, like, how do you know laws in other countries about burials?
Well, she's just saying third world countries. It makes a lot of sense.
Do you bury bodies, Shanna? Are you a body barrier?
It's just because of the Cindy Crawford talk.
She's mad about our trade talk.
Yes.
Lit a fuse. Just kidding, Shanna. We love you. Thanks for joining the show.
Yep.
My last story. This one caught my eye because the title of the news column was "No Ifs, Ands, or Buts," spelled with 2 T's. Climate change protesters dropped their pants at the Massachusetts State House during a debate on a proposed tax relief package Thursday to bring attention to what they say is needed for swifter action against the use of fossil fuels. At about 1 p.m., protesters turned their backs to the Senate chamber, and lowered their pants to review letters that spelled out "Stop Passing Gas" on their bare backsides.
Up your butt, Jobu.
You waited for the clip that time. I'm proud of you.
So this is what we're doing now. We're dropping drawers in front of state houses to protest.
Fossil fuels. These people probably got there.
I mean, I guess it's better than burning down buildings.
They got there in the cars.
You know what? This is what I got to say to White Sox. No, I'm just joking. I'm not doing that.
Oh, please don't.
White Sox fans should do this, though. Wait till Jerry shows up. Meet outside of his box. Drop your pants and say, "Kiss our ass, Jerry."
I don't know. He was an IRS tax lawyer. So if you drop your pants, he might take advantage of it.
Shanna says, "No, I don't. She doesn't bury bodies." I don't believe her. She says, "I know other people that have lived in other countries." Oh, well, hey, that's a reasonable excuse.
He knows people.
You just have to, if you know one thing about us, Shanna, if you know one thing about Combs and Fitz, it's the fact that we like the other options better, that you're a zombie killer. Like, we like that option a lot better.
Isn't that what a zombie killer would say?
Yeah. And not only that, but Shanna, isn't it a cooler story for you?
Yeah, really.
I mean, we're trying to help you out here.
Help us help you, Shanna.
We have people in Belgium that listen to us.
Help us out.
We're trying to make you famous.
We're multinational. Multinational conglomerate.
All right. You ready to get out of here?
Yeah, let's do it, I guess.
All right. Thank you guys for watching another episode of Windy City Sports Talk. As always, I am Brandon Combs along with Ryan Fitzgibbons. If you missed any part of today's live broadcast, you can now watch us on all podcast platforms, including Amazon Music, Spotify, and Pandora. We are also available on iHeartRadio. As always, make sure to click the like button, share, and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform. If you have any feedback for us or have something you want us to talk about or questions you want us to answer, or if you live in Belgium, you can email us at combsandfitz, all one word, combsandfitz at gmail.com. Shanna says 2 words, hog farm. All right, guys. Have a good night. We will talk to you in a little while. Same bat time, same bat channel. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies.
Tell the zombies.
And tell the zombies. Tell whoever.
I'll take a zombie crowd.
Dude, there's some